Excellent. Okay, welcome everybody to tonight's resources meeting. We don't have any members of the public here. There's nobody waiting to come in. Is there members of the public? Everything. Good, thank you. Okay. Any apologies for absence? Councillor Morgan. Councillor Martin, please. Thank you. Any declarations of interest? Thank you. Minutes of last meeting, held on the 26th of September. Happy to receive and accept those.
Yeah.
Thank you. Is that agreed by everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Minutes of the communication strategy group. Just to receive those.
Yeah.
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 Budgets. 5.1 summary income and expenditure, appendix A. That's page 4 of 58, Margaret.
Yeah, thank you. On the first line, that's page 4 of 58. I was just slightly, you know, I'm not the best person at interpreting these things. It seemed that we, correct me if I'm wrong, that we had more income than expected. Is that correct? And the expenditure was less, but it seemed to me, because it's in brackets, shows negative, but am I just misreading it?
We have slightly more income on resources than expected because we've got more interest coming in on the bank account. We weren't expecting too much in income credit.
Okay. So it's in brackets. The 1015 is in brackets. What does that signify on that first line?
It means that we've got slightly more income than we were expecting.
And when it's in brackets in the expenditure, that means that it's
the other way around.
the other way around. So, okay, thank you. That really helps.
Okay, so is there anybody else want anybody else on page 4 of 58, appendix A? No? Page 5 of 58. Page 2. No? Okay. Now, detailed income and expenditure report, appendix B. So page 6 of 58. Anybody got anything on here?
No.
Okay. Page 7 of 58. With Cox. Page 8 of 58. Page 9 of 58. Page 10 of 58. Page 11 of 58. Of 58. Page 13, Robin.
Just to say that most of the ones you would have queried have got a written explanation against them anyway. So we don't need to question them because they've actually got a change, got an explanation against it, which is really helpful.
Yes, isn't it?
They've answered the question, it's there, which is saves time really. Thank you for that.
I suspect if you move through the year, you're going to get more and more right.
Yeah, but it's really good. You can look at that. You haven't got to ask the question because it's already done for you.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Keep it up.
They're on page 13. Page 14. Page 15. Okay, and appendix C. Page 16. Page 17. 18, Margaret.
Thank you. Can I just make a general comment?
course.
I'm pleased to see that the local procurement policy seems to be having an impact on the number of times Amazon appears on the list of payees, and I was pleased to see that I think that's reduced substantially, and I think it's an indicator that staff have taken that local procurement policy on board and are doing their best to buy locally when it's possible, and I accept it's not always possible.
Yeah, thank you. We'll go back to start now, can't we?
Yes.
Thank you. Papers. Oh, yes, I
Yeah,
do.
thank you, Chair. So this is my first time being on this committee. Well, looking at pages 16 to 18, I notice it's grouped according to supplier's name. It might be more helpful if it was grouped according to purpose or what committee it is. I think it's done alphabetically, so it's quite difficult to understand what it. I can see what the items are there, but as to where they fall, it's quite difficult to understand.
Okay.
So purchase ledger, invoice and listing.
So what page do you want, sorry?
That's 16
Six.
to 18.
16, you say?
Yeah.
Okay. 16. Yeah, go on.
So it is according to supplier's name, so alphabetically.
Yeah.
But I think it'd be helpful if we grouped it according to either the committees or what we did with pages 1 to 15. I think all are done according to the committees, but this is done alphabetically, so it just has a long list of different items. So it is slightly difficult to understand. I can see the items and the descriptions, but knowing what was used for it's quite.
Yeah. I mean, the good thing about this committee is that we do listen to feedback and and Jodie and Claire do try and tweak things when members say, could we try it this way, could we try it that way? Well, sorry, Claire.
I was going to say, I think this has come up before and there's a reason for it, and I can't for the life of me remember what the reason for it is.
Yeah, Robin.
I think the code can be traced back if I'm correct, but there is a reason we've done it alphabetically because people complained they couldn't know where it was. And I suppose we're unfair to you, AD, is that some of us are signed for these, we've seen them before, if you see what I mean. So it's probably, but I mean, we've always tweaked this, the computer system which we've got, which is always the problem with the limited information that you can put on here. But if it makes it easier for you, I suppose it's not a bad thing to do if it can be done.
Then Martin and then Margaret.
Thank you. Yes, so we have tried it in other ways only before. The first load of papers and pages are to see where we spend on those projects and particular assignments. And then the invoicing, we wanted it grouped into suppliers to make sure we can see that we're, whether a supplier is getting too much or too little, rather than where it's going, because that's already been told in the previous pages. So it was really to bring out those suppliers in alphabetical order as to where the money is being invoiced to. Hence, it's done that way. And as Robin has said, if you feel that way inclined, you could trace it back to the
minute number.
And stuff like that.
And to the budget.
But this bit here really was for us to see nothing more. Well, obviously a lot more, but nothing more than the supplier and who, how much we're paying for each one, with those comments on the end.
Okay, Margaret and Sue.
Yeah, thank you. I think the centre, the heading centre is an indicator of where it goes, but I know it would take me a long while to work out what that referred to. And I guess what we don't want to do is make these any more complicated than we need to. So you could have another heading with E for environment, for instance, TCE, you could, but it's already, I think it's probably already complicated enough. And I certainly wouldn't want it to become more complicated, but I do take the point. It's a very good point.
Yeah. Okay, Sue, and then back to Addy, then I'm going to move on.
To change it in a different way would take away the benefit that Margaret pointed out, that there is now more of a push to shop locally rather than Amazon.
Yeah. Addy, and then we move on.
Yes, just to clarify that, so I'm not saying we should not use the supply of alphabetical, but group them as well. So ongoing, for example, the environment, suppliers will still be alphabetically, so we can still identify that, but then we now know what comes or what that is. If the centre, so I noticed reference to the centre. I'm not sure what 301 stands for, or what 261 stands for, but if there's some guidance in that, that might be very helpful.
They are basically the easiest, because I don't know them all off by heart anyway, but if you look on the main I&E, then that is grouped by your cost centre. And
Okay.
I appreciate that there's no perfect way of doing it, and I know that there have been variations tried. Certainly, I think what you're suggesting would be quite difficult, because I'm not sure the system would be set up to allow us to do all Amazon purchases from the environment records. I think that might blow its mind, so we'd have to do it manually, which could be extremely time consuming.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it is quite old. Everyone uses it, but it's not necessarily as creative as you might hope.
Central events, the other one.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks.
We all spend money wisely.
Okay. So I think we're on page 18, possibly. 19. 20. 21. Robin.
Just go back to 20, it might be,
20.
I mean, it might be worth looking into what Adi said, like things like annual subs, which is on that page. We know that we pay into all these organisations, but they are collective at some point, just to give members a note of who we do pay to. They are annual subs. It's probably, is it grouped in there perhaps? So annual subs are BS.
No.
Now,
Yeah.
that'd be now. So those sort of things, I kind of get where your problem, Adi, and I think that maybe it'd be a good thing just to sit down and go through these. And when you get familiar with them, it'll you know, even then I couldn't work what that one was. I do get your problem. I do, but it's not a perfect system, but it is all there and it is all accountable.
And you can always go in and speak to Jodie if you wanted to sit with her. And yeah, is that what you had on that page 20, Robin?
Yeah, it's fine. It's just
21. 22. Okay. Right. So policy review. So we've got a cover report. Did you want to say anything about this, Claire, or you have to go straight to members?
Not a lot to say. Basically, we renew our policies on a fairly regular basis. These are the ones that are up for the changes. There's just some very minor tweaks to note if you're happy with those.
Yeah.
the one I wanted to talk about. Oh, it's gone off the page now.
No,
Are we just opening that up to all of those policies then, or can I ask a question about safeguarding policy?
safeguarding's on here.
Yeah, that's okay, is it?
Yeah.
I'll be moving on to that.
Yeah.
I noticed that the designated officers in page 34, I think it is, item 5, the designated officers, it still shows Paul Hodgson as town clerk and you as deputy. So that needs updating.
Thank you.
And
It shouldn't have a name, it should be good for it.
yeah, that would be better, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Just by the post.
Yeah, it does look rubbish job title.
I did notice, believe it or not, a few, just a couple of typos,
Get away.
which I don't think I need to read out now, but who would be the appropriate person to
You can send them to
send them to you, Paula?
Yeah. Right, Anthony, and then Robin.
Just to prove that I have read some of this before the meeting, I put in my notebook exactly what Margaret said about the fact that Paul Hodgson's name was there. Should be. But yes, it's a good point to clear that away.
Robin.
Yeah, the safeguarding policy, the one at the end, it's all very familiar and it reads through. But we do, as councillors, engage and meet and do people on safeguarding. And I didn't see if I've missed it, I apologise, but I didn't see anything about safeguarding councillors. I know that it wouldn't be a bad thing that we look at that at a future date, in the sense that we ought to, well, those who believe that they're, and I think we should go around telling people what they should do. I'm not a great one for that, but I think maybe it'd be a good thing to update that. Those of us who, like, Lisa's got a safeguarding thing because she, professional, but everything refers to what you're doing, not to what you are. Although you might have one for another thing, it doesn't refer to what you are. So whether we ought to, at a future date, just come back and discuss whether you look at it and see whether you think we need to add it to councillors. So we do meet young people in various ways as councillors, and we need to be assured that we are as safe as members of the public. I'm sure everyone is of good note and there's not a problem, but I think we should just go and look at that, and you come back and tell us after looking at it whether you think it is, and if it is, we add it to the policy at a later date, not change it now.
What specifically are you thinking of? Because I mean, the policy does cover elected members as well.
Yeah, well, we don't have. What I did at one point, one or two of us did go and have was CBR check, but they're quite DBS now, don't they?
Yeah.
Because we were actually mixing with children. That hasn't been updated, and it's some historical. And I wonder whether that some of us do for the council specifically do meet children on activities and events and things. And I think from this, you should be assured that we are okay.
Talk about DBS checking.
Yeah. I think it might be something to consider. If you think it isn't worth considering, say so. But I'd say
did have a look at it. I mean, one thing I would say is that I'm not aware of any point that we would ask a councillor to be with a child unattended.
Yeah.
A number of the staff are DBS checked, but they are specifically DBS checked due to their role. There are reasons to do a DBS check. You have to fall within a specific category in order to justify it. I think that would be one I personally, if there was a situation where a councillor was going to be dealing with a child without a DBS check member of staff, then that would be something we'd specifically look at. I would be reluctant to suggest we blanket DBS check everybody. But if you've got a specific concern and you think that it's something...
Well, I just think it's something we should look at and review. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the policy. I'm not making anything. It's just that when I read it through, I having been in other places than you can and you do for different specific reasons, I thought that maybe we should look at that as well, because it's the reputation of the council, not the individual, if you understand what I mean.
No, I understand. Let me have another look. We're in the process of getting the flood wardens DBS check, for instance, because they obviously could be going into
exactly. But that sounds strange that you do them and not.
But then we are asking them to go into potentially vulnerable people's homes to help them put their blood in. So that's the reason specifically.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure everyone's perfectly safe and nobody on the council is anyone not very concerned about. But if something was happened and you got asked, were they, and they weren't, and something there, it's much better. Just look at it. If I'm wasting your time, tell me.
Have a chat with Louise about it tomorrow.
I used to run the child safety at the parish church, and it's very clear that the reason for doing a DBS is if you might potentially will be working with children direct. So you'll have this from your own professional experience.
Yeah.
It's been a waste of council resources and money to do a DBS on someone who's not expected to be with an under 18 or a vulnerable person without someone else being there.
Yeah.
We're only town councillors, so I think we have to remember what role we play here.
Yeah, we would generally be lone working in a sense with
Because quite frankly, if anyone sees an issue with a child or an OAP that needs assistance, I would hope you don't go straight to the relevant authority, which would be Buckingham Council, to get the assistance. None of us got the qualifications as town councillors to try to help.
Yeah.
It's not about that. No. I think I've just thought and I was in more detail. I don't think it needs to hold a meeting every night.
If you would be happy that I'll have a review with Louise tomorrow, we'll chat it through and see.
Yeah,
But after see it, I don't want to do it today.
I think it's fine, and everybody's comments are welcome. Okay, so I am going to go back to R/102/22, which is page 2358. Are members happy to recommend the proposed changes? So that is the pension policy, abandoned trolley policy, signage policy, training policy, safeguarding children policy, and photography policy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much.
We have a proposal in second. then.
No proposal,
And Martin second, thank you. Can we show hands, please? Thank you. Martin, double.
With their hands.
I don't think you listen to men have it. It's nice that you listen to men into what you said, but we could have all got that wrong. Mark.
Right, so.
Never not listen to Lisa.
Right, so we've done a permit to England. That's annoying. What I did wonder about. Okay. So item 7 is the bank reconciliations.
Item 7 and item 8. I haven't quite realised until Jodie produced it quite how much there is to this pack to sign off. It'd be a little unfair to expect Lisa to go through it in the meeting because it's a folder like that. What I was going to suggest is Lisa wants to come in and go through it with myself or Jodie when you've got time to actually look at it properly. And any other councillor, as indeed, if you want to come through and have a look, happily go through it with you when we've got time to do a proper job of it. And then we will report back to the next resources to say that it's all been signed off and it's completed. But I've got a folder there, but it's quite long. We'll be here for a long time.
But please do feel free to go in the office and have a look at it. Honestly, please do. It's, nobody's going to stop you from going in if you've got an hour or two.
Happy to talk people through them as well if you want to know a bit more.
Yeah. Martin.
Is there a reasonable obligation that we need to check them through?
The chair of resources needs to check them through and it does need to be minuted that that's done. And I understand that in the past it has been done in the meeting. It's just that it's quite substantial. So if you do it outside of the meeting and then bring it back to say we've done it.
Should we minute a meeting in the near future to do that with just whoever wants to turn up? The chair plus another minimum.
I see what you mean.
If it needs to be done, then we need to action it to be done.
I'm absolutely happy that the auditor will not have a problem with us doing the actual checking outside of the meeting and then bringing it back to the meeting to say that it has been checked and that the chair of resources is happy with what it is. It is just a petty cash in the bank reconciliation.
We can get Howard in as well as vice chair. Members are happy.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely happy. Anybody will come in and have a look. We'll go through it. Lisa as chair of resources that needs to be happy.
And we don't really want to hold you all up tonight. But it will come back to another meeting. So it's not going away.
No, my thought was, should we action another meeting, not unofficial, but a meeting for people to attend if they so desire, which would include the minimum to do it, or should we just leave it to be happened and brought back and say it has been done?
We could do it that way, but then it would impose on you having to do it at the time we set the meeting, whereas if we just say, if you want to come in and have a look at it, we'll go through it.
Yeah. I'm sorry, let me take one first.
Well, I'm happy to propose that we agree that the chair resources, town clerk, and if available, the deputy chair of the committee goes through these questions and brings us back any deviations or concerns that they have after doing it. If that helps, does that help? And then that doesn't, but all of us going through this together won't actually get us anywhere quicker, because it is a job of the chair of resources. If you chair resources, you get these privileges.
Absolutely fine, sir.
You're happy with that?
I take your comment and recommendation and move forward on it.
It has to be seconded.
I'll second it.
Nadia?
No, actually, I think Robin's covered what I want to talk about, because I think Claire said it had to be done. So if that has to be done, I think we then need as a committee to delegate it to certain councillors to do it. If the chair of the resource committee should be doing it, then I think it would be important for us to delegate it to the chair of the committee and her vice to do it on our behalf, and then report to us at the next meeting. From there, everything is okay, then we can then.
I think we're in agreement, aren't we?
But everybody is welcome to go in and have a look at it. Margaret?
And thank you. Just on a practical note, though, Howard is the vice chair, isn't he?
Yes.
The deputy chair.
Yeah.
And he's not around for a couple of weeks. Oh, I shouldn't have.
You shouldn't have said that.
Sorry.
We've got 7 weeks before the next result, I
Okay.
suppose. There's no rush on this.
Okay.
Right, so members happy with the recommendation? Yeah, okay, but again, please go and have a look at them yourselves. Okay, so that's moved 7 and 8, so on to item 9, meeting attendance questionnaire, appendix J. Any thoughts on this, Martin?
What is this about?
Okay.
Is there any reason for having
What is it?
hang on a sec, is there any reason for having a feedback form on presentations that people are given? I mean,
Yes, because it was raised.
All right, so that's a specific question on here, not the actual questionnaire.
well, and then, you know, why have a feedback form anyway?
But I can't start from here.
Go for it.
So, Councillor Harvey wanted this item. He wanted this quite a while ago because some members of the public had come to meetings and weren't happy. So we agreed in another resources meeting that we could have a questionnaire for anybody, and that's planning, that's environment, didn't matter what the committee or full council interim, but anybody who came to talk in a public session to give us feedback and see if we need to improve on anything, if things weren't clear to them, if there could have been a better explanation, if they didn't feel welcome coming in. So that's kind of where it was born from. But it was agreed in the resources meeting that we have this feedback form. So this is just here now for discussion agreement. But if there's a specific question on there that you didn't think was appropriate.
No, it was just generally, you know, do we really need to have a form? And also, every box is marked with a red star. There's no option. You might as well just put everything's required at the top.
So we could take that off. Yeah, because it's voluntary to fill this out anyway. So, right, so I'll take Robin and Addy and then Warren.
I think we agreed we were going to do it, and we've sort of said
We have.
so to go back on what we've done would be, would need to have a long explanation why we didn't put it in. I don't think we need to do that. I think we just need to note it and or agree it. And but I think this is to present it if somebody wants it. It's not like everyone who comes in the door presents. If we're questioned about something, we can present this form to allow officers to interpret what the concerns are.
Absolutely.
So that they're in a matrix which is understandable, rather than a very long email which takes in lots of personal itch. Yeah.
So, Addy and Warren.
I think, well, I won't comment on it because we've already agreed on it. What I think we will do is put it on the website, making an e-form.
It will be on there.
Okay, so, okay.
Yeah.
So, okay.
There'll be paper copies here for any visitors that come in person, but it will be available electronically. So, yeah, it will be.
Yeah, so the reason why I asked that, the reason why I said electronic, because I know we're trying to go green, paper usage and all that. I'm not sure why we should then start printing this form out. have them lying around.
It's accessible for everybody, because not everybody's got internet, not everybody's able to use a computer or phone. We have to be accessible to everybody, so it would be unfair to say we've only got an electronic form, you can't have it in paper. So that's the reason why. Is that okay? Okay, thank you. Warren?
Just two observations. It's who's going to be using the information. It doesn't say where it's going to be hedged to. But it might also be rather useful to know which committee the person actually attended and had a concern about, because otherwise, you know, was it the chairing, was it the time, was the agenda too big?
Lovely.
So it'd be useful to actually be able to fine tune what the issue was, and if there's any context to the issue that arose, if there was an issue. And also, I'm just picking up Addy's point, it would seem sensible that a link to this would be made available either on the agenda or on a piece of paper, a small piece of paper, so we don't have to have reams of questionnaires on the off chance someone picks one up. If it's easier for the town council to deal with responses on the form, then we should presumably want to encourage the online filling in of it. And I would imagine we probably know one or two people that don't use email or webs persons who can make sure they don't paper copy if needed.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, if it's in paper form, it can always be transferred to digital, so that when it's the information. Yeah, Anthony.
Yes, indeed. I know that we already have a complaints and compliments report from time to time. Could this not be bound into the same thing so that we could look at it periodically?
Could be. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, if there's something that needs urgent attention because it's serious, then it needs to be dealt with. But it would be nice just to get a general feedback periodically.
Bring it back to resources.
That in the same way as compliments and complaints.
Yeah, members happy with that.
See what they say.
Yeah. Okay, so we're taking more points on board now, good ones. And are members happy with this form?
Yeah. With them points. Once amended.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. Right, so number 10, echo reduction at council chamber to receive a report from the office admin. Would anybody like to talk on this one? Yes, Robin?
Just firstly, maybe why I was looking at the various things and I was looking at the report and it was sort of suggesting stuff hanging in the ceiling and whatever. Which sometimes you have a sound block in a big music venue, which does the same thing. It bounces the sound back to the ground, which then definitely. It was the level of concern we've had raised against the allotted budget to spend on it, really, to make sure that the concern over it is great enough for us to actually spend that money on doing it. If it's necessary, yes, but I mean, it's difficult to gauge what it's like when you're in a meeting for echo. It's probably easy to gauge when you're not in the meeting or you're sat on the outskirts.
It's awful. So when I've zoomed in and you're all here, I can barely hear anybody down here.
Well, that's an advantage when I'm down here, but no, that's what I'm asking really, because it's a reasonable amount of money.
Warren, and then Addy.
I have similar concerns. It is a lot of money, and I mean, I do listen to the YouTube recordings every so often, and I don't think there's a huge problem with it. But I do wonder if part of how much testing has been done with the microphone, because the room hasn't got huge reverberation.
Yeah.
It stops dead quite quickly. We've got the curtains, got the carpet. We're all in here wearing soft stuff, so the reverberation time isn't that bad. So I just wonder, is it actually because the microphone is on a hard surface, so the sound next to it is bouncing around a little bit, rather than actually seeing if there's a better place or better thing to locate the microphone onto? Because you think about if you're doing a podcast, you see them with lots of, lots of stuff to help extraneous noises. I just wonder how much testing we've done on that first before we spend nearly £3,000 on some feature panels, which will definitely make a difference. But I wonder, are they a bit overkill?
We have tried a few versions of the advertisement, extremely helpful. We had some velvet, which really didn't help if anything, it made it worse. We have tried putting it up there, but that didn't work particularly well to get it away from the table. Considered hanging off the lights, but I think the lights buzz very faintly, and that would cause a problem. I mean, there are microphones up on there as well. It's one of these, we could throw literally tens of thousands at this in order to, if you want studio quality sound. This was a reasonable compromise as far as it can go. There is a little bit, because of the shape of the room, there is, it's not so noticeable when you hear, but there is a bit of an echo. I'm not really answering your question, I just thought.
The question is, have we had dozens and dozens of people complaining about the sound quality? And is it worth spending nearly £3,000 of taxpayer money on trying to solve that?
I think you're about right.
I do.
Yeah, I think Rob Warren's spoken for me already. I think the only thing I'll add to that is I noticed we have one mic here. I mean, that's why there's not much sound coming from here, because if we had another mic, then that would be helpful as well.
Unfortunately, the system, it was, if you want multiple mics, then you're going substantially up the. I'm interested in the council tries, obviously.
Yeah,
I know you've spoken with Becky quite a lot on this.
Yes, because I think there were two complaints. I won't say complaints. There were two things raised there. One was the echo. The second was the sound and the audibility of transfers on this side.
Yeah.
And that has got to do with the high ceiling. So when we do that, we might still have that same problem here. But I do agree with Warren. When I listen to the YouTube channel, I haven't got actually heard clearly, so I haven't got any complaints on that. But I'm sure other people may. I'm not saying there isn't, but I think we should reconsider before we approve.
Okay, Martin.
Yeah, it's a very difficult one. We've got different types of people sitting around the table. And at some meetings we stand up, so we're further away and we then sit down again. Here we're all sitting. As the town clerk said, the system we've got is fantastic for the price we paid for it. But the next jump is humongous. There are microphones in the camera itself, and it has the ability of having this one remote one. So there are those ones up there on the screen, but of course, inverse square law and sound, it's a long way from where everybody is speaking. And then this one is closer to other people and not whatever else. As has been alluded to, I tried to insulate that from the table by putting some sound foam and then a hard surface on top of that, because this microphone works by collecting the bouncing sound onto it. But in fact, that made it worse according to the trial. So I don't know what's happening there. You know, it's not my professional business, but I thought that would have done the trick, but it didn't. So we're on that cusp of trying to make things a little bit more audible without going overkill. And you may say £3,000, £4,000 is an overkill. That's to be discussed. That's why we're here. But on the other hand, to make it completely right, as you suggested, we would need multiple microphones, more soundproofing or reflection absorbing material. And we didn't think that was enough. There is the thought of maybe putting a runner or something on this table to lessen it and also to deaden the sound here. So it's now up for discussion, really. That's, you know, the benefits against the cost. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah. I would like to say that at some point we are going to have our pictures back on the wall. I don't know how much of a difference that will make, but you know, we all want them back up there at some point. So but all right, so I open the floor for discussion, Robin.
Partly what you just said, Chairman, that I think that let's wait until we see what orderly difference it makes when we had two pictures done not long ago, didn't we? Of the new council and the previous council. When those pictures come back up, they will deflect sound because they are on the wall. It might not be might not resolve the issue. But I would be very reluctant to spend money now until we've done that and then see would it monitor it again, because council has agreed to have its photographs back, and they're already paid for, aren't they?
True.
And we haven't got to spend any money on those. And as Warren thought that we were in agreement, it's a lot of money to spend to evaluate. Well, I haven't had anybody. I've got lots of people ask me questions, but the question I haven't been asked is, well, when I watched the webcast, exactly, that hasn't been something that I've received. It might just me. Or perhaps my own, perhaps I've not got good enough quality hearing to notice it.
Warren and Margaret.
I just noticed we've got review the compliments and complaints in January 2023. I wonder, could there be just an assessment of how many complaints we've had about the quality and what specifically they've said, just so we can just ascertain, really, are we talking about a couple of people, or actually there's lots and lots of people who find it difficult to follow on YouTube? Because if there's one or two, we might have to take a judgment call.
Yeah.
But if, we can wrap to people, if we have 25 people watching YouTube and 25 people all complain, then there's an issue.
Yeah, you're right.
So maybe we could do that in January.
Yeah, that sounds like a reasonable way forward. I'll take Margaret and then Sue.
Thank you. I'm not an advocate of spending either small or large amounts of money unless they're necessary. The only thing I would point out or ask a question about is it's not coming directly from the council taxpayer because it's the new homes budget. Or I think that is that relevant or not?
I believe I would take it out of the new homes bonus, but I would say if we spend that money on that, then we can't spend it on
Something else.
something else. So it's still money that's there in the big part of it.
And that was for the council chamber refurbishment project. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that.
Sue?
I'm hearing there seems to be some conflicting ideas of how good the quality is as received in people's phones. Of course, we don't know what quality equipment people are listening to it on. Some people might be listening on really rubbish things, and whatever we do won't improve it for them.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking that earlier, that somebody could have a really old computer and not have very good speakers at all, and that's going to sound awful. Yeah. Okay, so I'm happy to go along with Warren's recommendation that we put this back on the agenda for January for the compliments and complaints section, see if anybody complains about it. If it is a problem, then we'll look at it again, and if there isn't a problem, then it dies a death.
But can we minute our thanks to Martin Stein on it?
Yeah, thank you, Martin. Warren.
Absolutely. And just picking up those points, actually, if someone does complain about it, could we go back to ascertain what their equipment was and also what the broadband is like, because YouTube and broadband can have a big impact on sound quality.
Massively, yeah, what system they're using, yeah, absolutely.
Very hot topic.
All right, can we have a show of hands to go along with that recommendation? I was happy to second it. Yeah, thank you. Okay.
Thank you to Bethany for persevering with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Minute, thanks to Bethany as well, please, Paula. Thank you.
We'll move on, Chair. There is recommendation 1.2 as well, just in case that gets knocked off at the bottom.
Give that to there.
1.2.
So that's what we were just discussing now.
Recommended that members agree to propose that the items as listed in section 5 to return to the council chamber. Section 5. That's all the way down. Okay.
Yeah.
Right, so this is page 56 of 58. Down the bottom, we've got item 5, council chamber furniture. The question is, are we happy that these items come back into the chamber? I'm definitely happy for these items to come back into the chamber. I think you said yes, Warren.
Generally happy. Just the one that springs to mind as being a bit odd, but maybe that was just me, was the Buckingham Townships one, because I know when that, because that's the 3D map one, isn't it? And I know the number of people come in thinking, where's that? Because we're not officially twin, we haven't got a friendship agreement. It does, if you're a stranger to the chamber, it's an odd map to see, just because it happens to be a Buckingham. I think it's in America, but We have no formal link to it, I just wondered what, I know that, I think it was down there, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember it.
It used to just confuse people more than useful. That's my view.
Yeah, I remember that problem.
And to know what one of them, but I think we had a long discussion about why didn't we got it showing, and we were challenged by it and relented and put it up. I think that let's discuss when we put everything up if there's space for it, because we don't know chamber as it is now. We don't know quite how the pictures are going to sit in here, and if isn't room, it's the one thing that I think. Well, I'm quite right. It's just we wouldn't put up in preference to something else. I think you'll find that you sort of look at the space. We've gained a bit of space. We've got 2 screens to account for, so it could be that it would have to be dropped as a matter of necessity anyway.
Yeah.
But I don't. But if there is any issues about fitting stuff in, I think it should be discussed by councillors what doesn't come in. And what does come in, because otherwise, if you don't put something in and then council see it isn't here, we'll have a long discussion on why it isn't here. But I do think one makes a good point on that particular item.
So, I'm sorry, Martin.
2 things on practicality. Are we thinking of dado rails to hang the pictures from, so that if we need to change the order or the size, it can just be moved, in the old-fashioned way of doing pictures? Yeah, rather than making a lot of holes in. And also, when we say the council chamber, we also have the foyer as well, which maybe could hold some of the items, which may include that big thing there as well. And that would make more space for us.
We're going to hang anything up there, right?
Just to say that technically that is inaccurate anyway. and it was made with love by somebody at some point in the distant past, long before any of us were out. And I think it's something we inherited from previous, but I think it's the wrong swan, Buckingham.
Yeah.
It is the wrong swan. It's probably was a more appropriate for Buckinghamshire County Council than it is, but it's more the County Council's swan than
Can
it
we
is
go
ours.
back to the item in question, item 5? Are you happy? Can I have a show of hands that the items come back into the chamber, please?
In a controlled
Are
way.
we on 5.1 or 5.2 at the moment, Chair?
Both.
Right.
5.1 and 1.2.
Yes, may I speak to 5.2 then? Sorry, I was sort of, when we talked about furniture, I thought we were
No, we were
on
talking
5.1.
about pictures.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I want to be clear. What is missing from that list that isn't going back up? Because do you see what I mean?
Well, if you can't remember, you don't need it.
Well,
It's the non-living mayor's portraits.
yeah, okay, so current council portraits, but so, I don't know, somebody from many years ago won't be going back up, is what I'm trying to get
The
to.
suggestion is that we stick with
Right.
living mayors and current the council.
Yeah, I just want to be, I love being clear, and I would like to see all previous pictures go up, simply for 2 reasons. One, it's part of our history, but even before I joined the council, but when I was attending as a member of the public, Derek Isham was very kind and took me all around the room and explained to me the history. And it was so important to get your bearings as a completely new person, exactly where we had come from and where we were at present. And I'm very, very much of an opinion that we should put them all back up.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to debate about styles of frames and stuff, we can have a debate about that. Although I would tend to stay with the frames because they are of their time. But nevertheless, I'd like all the pictures back, please.
I'm so glad that you picked up on that, because that was part of our previous discussions, is all the pictures go up. So thank you for picking up on that. And
it would also save us the embarrassment that if a currently living mayor passes, which will happen at some point, that we then have to take the portrait down, seems a bit.
Bit inappropriate.
I mean, yeah, that does feel callous, doesn't it?
I can see that.
Okay, we're gonna move on, but
I'm happy
Are
to
we-
second that's amendment.
yeah, we agreed all of the previous pictures that are up that include past mayors.
Yeah.
So all of the mayor pictures, all of them, yeah. Margaret.
So thank you. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we didn't have all of the past mayors up. It was
We
only
did.
back to a
No,
certain,
we did, all of them were up.
going back for,
74.
I'm pretty sure there are some that were installed.
No longer than
in your
that.
jail, actually.
Robin?
I do a councillor Isham now. To advise you, the ones we won't have will be ones from the borough council
Yeah.
days. But
oh,
some of those are in pictures of the borough council, which were, we haven't got any mayors of the borough council. It obviously was a thing that was started by the present council, so
Okay.
it goes back as was suggested, and some of the early ones like were Mr. Roberts, who I know his daughter very well. He was a borough mayor, and he was I think he crossed to be the first, if I'm correct. Daughter will tell me off if you're watching this because I got it wrong. But I think he then became the town mayor. So he was on the crossover, and like Councillor Foot, who was a borough and became a town. And there's some people who crossed over. And Derek was very good at knowing who was where,
Yeah.
what day they did it, and when they did it.
okay.
So can we have a show of hands with adapted recommendation that all pictures got, please? Thank you. Thank you.
So try going for once.
You're not at Calvert now.
No dress hands.
The Calvert vote.
Right, so updates from representatives from outside bodies. Who would like to go first? Show of hands, please, don't all rush at once. Nobody. Oh. Is that a hand?
No,
Yeah.
I'm kidding. No, I mean, I will report back to the council. There's no point in
Okay,
it.
absolutely fine.
It saves time.
Thank you. Action report, minutes K. Anything on here?
Most of it was on the agenda.
Yeah.
And we covered the other
Members
thing.
happy? Yeah, okay.
It's just one thing, Kevin, as we
Okay.
said, that we want the pictures back up. Can it go on the action report?
Go on the action report, and then we'll keep an eye on it,
Keep
can't we?
an eye on it, can't we?
Okay, absolutely fine. Yeah. Okay. Right, I don't have any announcements, so date of next meeting is in the new year, 16th of January. And that'll be 2023, not 2022, sorry about that. Martin.
Maggie, my, oh no, she's not apologies.
What?
Maggie, my
Oh,
apologies.
you'll be at the
Oh,
pantomime.
not sure.
Oh, no, you won't.
Yeah.
We got there in the end. It's always got a punchline.
All right, so we're gonna go into private session now, so we need to stop the live stream.